What you know about PE fitness? A more in-depth look on Dylan Gemelli's business. The number one channel for performance enhancement. If you searching for muscle advance, can't learn it from a book or a pamphlet. Tune in for the answers, cause your body's too precious to take any chances.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Dylan Gemelli Podcast. So today I am bringing you a very, very special guest. So I'm going to give a couple of her accolades and then I'm going to let her take it from there. Very modest, but I want her to talk about it all. So this is Monica Brant. She was an IFBB Fitness Olympia champion in 1998. And she also won the WBFF World Figure Pro in 2010 and 2013. She's got a ton of other things that I'm going to let her tell you about, but I just want to introduce her first. So everybody, this is Monica Brant.
Hello. Hi, Dylan.
Thanks for taking time today, Monica.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you're going to be very intriguing to my audience. As you know, I have a very large following in bodybuilding and fitness. And so I want to just get into talk about everything we can possibly talk about with you. So, being that you have so much experience, I think it would be, because everybody's got a story. What drew you to fitness? What made you want to compete? What's your driving force and motivation and factor in all of this?
Woo. We got a couple hours, right?
Take your time and explain it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've first of all, I've been an athlete since I can remember. You know, just grew up out in the country. We water skied all summer long. We had horses. My mom was a horse trainer. I showed horses. I gave riding lessons. I took every kind of horseback lesson that my mom could put me in outside of what she taught me. We had our own horses. We trained horses. Like, had 20 acres, so constantly, you know, outside working in the yard and doing whatever needed to be done around the house with outside chores. You know, there's always grass to mow and weeds to pull and ditches to dig and rocks to pick up and driving a big tractor out in the field to shred the grass and pick up bales of hay. Like, it's nonstop out in the country, right? So,
Right.
And then all of our neighbors were country people with tons of acreage. So we had, back then, we had a lot of woods we could go ride. I could go ride my horses back in the woods for hours. We could go on long trail rides in water. Like, I just grew up country, just barefoot everywhere. And, but I also was in sports in school. So track started in sixth grade. But I remember, like, even in first grade, being the fastest kid in my class outside of the boys and the girls. So just always loved sprinting, and I still do. Like, I think it's one of the greatest joys in my athletic life is to be able to go and do a sprint, and still to this day go do a sprint, right? Like, you know, as we get older, there's less and less of that kind of activity in general population.
Right.
And I think people forget how fun it is to just run. Like, you watch kids and they're like, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop. They're always like, you know, they just run. And you're always like, why does that end up stopping? But anyways, it hasn't stopped for me. It's one of my favorite things to do is still go with this sprint. So track was always a big thing for me. You know, there's so many different rabbit holes with athletics for me, but I think that was the beginning for me as far as always having something to be athletically competitive in. And, you know, just stemmed from all of my growing up, school. You know, we were kind of kids too, that back in the 80s, you had one sport and that's all you did.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, we've got 3 sports and we've got after school, you know, coaching and all the stuff that we had to do. So, or we were able to do. And of course, living in the country was very limited with what we do. So I think, let's see, going into high school, I remember thinking it would have been, oh, it might be fun to be a cheerleader.
Right.
You know, like, so we grew up with a trampoline. out in the country, you know, and this was a trampoline that had no coverings on the springs. You fell off, you fell through the springs, you fell, which we all did. You know, no, there were no netting. There was no netting around the trampoline. You just learned to stay in the middle and do what you do. But we grew up with that. And I always used to do flips and all kinds of stuff on the trampoline. And so when I decided I wanted to try out for cheerleading, I thought, well, I need to know how to do round off back handsprings and back flips. And I don't know, just I got to learn to do these things. So I took what I could do on the trampoline to the ground. And I taught myself how to do gymnastics on the ground. Like literally, I didn't know how to do a cartwheel, but I could do a standing back tuck, or I could do front flips. I could do aerials, but I didn't know how to do them technically correct. So but all through my junior, high school years, I guess, I was out there doing all of my gymnastics. And I'd have my mom come out and watch me in the grass flipping around. And I'm sure she was just like praying. Okay. Because that's what I would be doing if I saw my kid flipping around and be like, without any, no teaching or anything. So I did all that. And then I went through pep squad my freshman year of high school, and because you had to go through pep squad.
Right.
And then you graduate high school, or not graduate. Well, now everyone graduates every school year, but ninth grade, you finish school. That summer was going to be cheerleading camp if I was going to try out for cheerleading. And I just remember my mom telling me, well, it's expensive. And so you have horses that you typically work and show during the summer. So you can do cheerleading or you can do horses.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do both. So I just chose horses, and I never went back to trying out for cheerleading or anything. So that was it. And I say all that because one, I'm a self-taught person for most everything I've done in my life, business, athletic stuff, whatever. And then two, it helped me with my all my fitness career as far as fitness competitions, because I was able to do all of that stuff. So when I started competing, move forward 1991, I had some moves I could do. However, mind you, I had never taken dance. So I didn't know dance. My first routine for fitness in 91, I had an aerobic instructor. It was a guy, he taught like step aerobics. And he was trying to teach me how to do like the Roger Rabbit. And I don't know, what are all these little, dances. I was so bad because I was a track athlete and a horseback rider. I didn't know about counting steps or, counting nothing, but I could do a backflip. And I wish so bad that I had video of my first routines, because I'm sure they were just like, move forward. Like fitness ended up. So when there's so many like variables, but I always had something to compete in. And I went to school. I graduated high school, went up to school for horses, and in a private college that had a equestrian science department you could actually graduate with a degree. And I ended up going up there for my first year. I had some scholarships to that school. I had on-campus jobs, but it was still really expensive. And then my parents divorced at that time in my life. Everything was sold, and I ended up not being able to go back to that school, mostly because of financial reasons. And that was the year that I just was like, I'm on my own now. And I was, out of my first year of college, and had to move back to Texas and figure out how to support myself. And I started going to a community college, and then I started working as a bud girl. I got into doing bikini contests at bars to make money. I was giving riding lessons at a little stables. Like, it was just, when you're that age, you're just like doing all these different things. And finally was able to kind of weed through everything. I ended up for about that for almost 5 years of my early 20s before I moved to LA. I got involved with fitness. I started working out at a gym. I had some people help me there. I ended up finding out about fitness because the actual competition started in 1987 or 86, 87. And so this is 91, I guess, right the end of 1990, right before 1991 is when I started hearing about fitness and was getting involved with the gym and had, different people in my life that were showing me what working out at the gym looked like. Cause I had never worked out at a gym. I just country girl, athletic sports girl. Right. So learned about, gym routines and saw a magazine for my first time. And Marla Duncan had just won in the beginning of 91. So somewhere in January, February of 1991, I saw a magazine that had Marla Duncan having won the Fitness USA competition. She won the nationals. So she must have just won in 1990, somewhere at the end of 1990. I'm seeing the magazine, the early 91. And I was like, this looks interesting. Like I had some similarities to her, a similar structure, blonde hair. And I was like, I ordered the VHS tape that you could order to see her win the national competition. And I was like, oh, wow, look, bikini contest. I've been doing bikini contest. So I'm like, maybe I could do this. And her routine at that time was literally push-ups, sit-ups. She did maybe one back walkover, jogging in place, jumping jacks. Like her routine was just very ordinary, right? She was super cute, big energy. And when I watched the VHS tape of her win, I thought, this is something I could do something like this, right? So that's when I ended up.
When you were doing.
Well, it's at the beginning of 91. So I had, I'm 70s. I just turned 20. Right? Right. Yeah. Because at 21, in 1991, in October, I turned 21. So I was just like 20 years old. And I was just, I had been back in San Antonio, going to school, working out at the gym, and had just ran across this fitness deal. And I got the VHS tape and watched the tape. And I thought, well, I can try this. Why not? So I ended up, I worked at this is kind of funny because just yesterday, well, here I am going into a rabbit hole, but I ended up working at a really cool bar in San Antonio called Lindy's. And it was like, picture the Cheers type bar where everyone knows your name, but just one of the best places in San Antonio, like doctors, lawyers, your friends, everyone would go in there. Super fun little place, lines outside every day to come in. They had a small kitchen, but it was just a really, really great place to work. I made great money, and we had all cute waitresses working and then male bartenders. Talk about, now things have changed so much. But funny story is just yesterday that that place is reopened, and it was closed down for a while. And my husband and I noticed that it had reopened. And so we were like, let's just go check it out. Right. So we went in, and I was like, just reminiscing, and met the new owner. And he's like, I just heard about your name. It's so funny because someone just brought up your name. This location from the 90s is still like talked about to this day because people missed it. It was such a great place. But anyways, so I had a great little job there, and I used to ask my regulars and the people that would come in there for sponsorship for my shows, and people were always willing to help you out back in those days. I'd get sponsorships for tanning or clothing or whatever, and ended up meeting the lady that produced the very first Silver Spur dancer team, which was the dance team for the San Antonio Spurs NBA. Right. So I ended up working with her for routines eventually, and just kind of this series of events. Right. Ended up getting into the national level with the USA Boyko Fitness USA competition over the years. And it was just, one show led to the next, and I just kept trying and getting a little better. And then ended up 1995 doing the nationals, placed 9th out of like 150 girls. Those nationals were so big back then. They were more of a pageant than just a competition. So we actually had a dress round where we had to wear a gown on stage and walk in high heels and a gown like a pageant. And we had to answer a question on stage. So that was part of the original Fitness USA pageant that I was involved with. So I started working with a pageant coach, and she helped me with the gown round. So it was a lot of fun. But to say that, trying to put it all in a short sequence, so it's not like long-winded. But I ended up doing that, and then had a handful of fun things that came out of that. I had some of the judges from that competition contact me wanting to bring me out to LA, because I lived in Texas still. They wanted me to come out to LA and audition for some TV roles.
Nice.
So I did some of that. I ended up getting, do you remember Gladiators, American Gladiators? Did you ever know many of them? Did you watch that much?
I had Laser on my podcast actually earlier, and actually last year it was. So yeah, and I've talked to a few other guys. So yeah, definitely. I have every episode there is on DVD here.
So do you remember Steve Henneberry? He was Tower.
Yes.
So he was one of the judges from that competition that I did in '95. Mm-hmm. And he had a TV show at the time, and I don't remember if it ever took off or if they were just doing the pilot. I can't remember, but it was called Muscle.
Okay.
And he was the main character, and it was supposed to be in and around a gym setting. Well, I ended up getting, going in and coming in as an extra, mm-hmm. But they wanted to utilize me in a bunch of different roles. Well, they had me all of these different spots that I was supposed to go and do and be involved in all these different scenes, I guess. And somebody complained about me, one of the other leading ladies. She, I guess, didn't want my look to be foremost. So they took me out of, from my memory, mind you, this is again back in this was in 95, I guess. So what I'm remembering is I had been placed in like maybe 6 or 7 different scenes, and ended up in one. At the end of the day, I was in one where my back was to the camera and I was sitting on the sofa. Wow. They ended up falling asleep in the casting, the wardrobe room. And I literally, because you couldn't leave once you said you do it, you were there, unless whether they used you or not. So I remember sleeping in the wardrobe room, like bored stiff, like. So anyways, that was just a brief part. And then had a friend of my brother's living in LA. He was a mechanical engineer for the race team, AJ Foyt's race team. So he was in and out of town all the time, but he told me, he's like, hey, if you want to move out here, he's like, I'll move in with you. We can get a bigger 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, because he just lived in a little efficiency type place on the beach. And so we ended up getting a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and I moved out in April of 95. I moved to Redondo Beach. Nice. And we had a place together. And so at least I wasn't out there completely alone, although I really didn't know anyone. I didn't have any things set up. I just wanted to go. I had some money saved up. My car was paid for because I did bikini contests all around Texas and won a lot of money back in those days. So I had my car paid off. I had furniture paid off. Like I didn't have any debt. So my dad drove me out in April of 95, drove me out with a U-Haul, took all my stuff out of the U-Haul. He had his Harley Davidson in the front of the U-Haul. So we took the U-Haul back to drop it off, and he jumped on his Harley and left me there. I was like, it was so weird, because I was like, I knew maybe 2 people in the whole state, maybe 3. And the first week I was out there, I remember unpacking and trying to get organized and like, what am I doing here? And I ended up getting a phone call from Jan Tana. Mm-hmm. And she invited me to go out to Jamaica for a photo shoot. And that was one of the things that I did right away, and ended up having a bunch of ads come out. So I was the Jan Tana tan girl in the ads for a while. And that was a big part of just people recognizing me again. And then I competed in her show in July. She had her fitness show was like one of the first pro fitness shows. So I won that. And that's when I ended up with the IFBB pro card and got invited to the first fitness Olympia in 95. So, and in between all of that, I was on Keanu Tom's Flex Appeal. So my first year was chaos. Like out here, like 95 was just so much. And I remember by the time the Olympia rolled around, I was exhausted. I didn't really know how to diet and go through life with so many things and so many traveling. And I was in Hawaii for 3 weeks filming for Keanu's deal while I was supposed to be preparing for the Olympia. Like it was a lot, I just didn't know. I was so new to everything. So the first Olympia, like I had really didn't know what that meant, like how big that was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just worn out from competing in February in the national level show to moving to traveling to Jamaica and then preparing for Jan's show. So Jan's show, the first fitness show she had was 3 rounds. Yeah, you had the routine round, normal routine round. We had a physique round. And then we had a real fitness round. And we had to do complete sit-ups, complete push-ups where chest had to hit the floor and go all the way up. So full minute of sit-ups, a full minute of push-ups, and as many as you could get in is your score. And then the third thing was a minute on the Versa climber, all out sprint. And you didn't have any rest in between. Like you did one, maybe there was a minute in between each exercise. So that was a pretty tough round, but I started training for that. Like I had never done push-ups for a minute.
So and at that time, obviously no internet, no GPS, no anything. So getting around, and this is from experience because I remember when I first went to LA to stay for a while, getting around, very difficult, especially then, because that time I at least had MapQuest. I could type it in, so you had to learn that. How did you go about promoting yourself? I mean, it almost has to be like get yourself in a magazine or go throw yourself in front of people or hope to know the right person, right? Or you just don't really have an option.
Well, so I think part of my journey, well, I don't think this, I know this, part of my journey has always been that I'll just preference this as I've always had a faith that God has a plan for me. And even if I'm not like in the lines perfectly, if I go here, he always pushes me back. Remember those pinball machines those games and your little paddle, you're trying to get the ball. Like that's always, I feel like, so even if I wasn't always on that line perfectly, I know that God arranged a lot of things and put a lot of things because of my heart, because he knew who I was in my heart. So I know God set up a lot of things for me. And there was, just to look back on my 10 years of being in LA and all the things that I went through and situations, and even just to the protection that I had while I was out there living by myself, right? Like traveling all over California, driving late nights, early mornings, whatever, living in the Marina Del Rey, Venice area, driving, so there's so many instances, but God's just always had a plan. But just even like to this one thing, I get to LA, I go do this, so first of all, Jan Tana was at the Fitness USA Nationals that I did in the beginning of February of 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the big 150 girls national level. I had, competed in 1991. We're 95 now. And go there. My family was there, and I had one girlfriend backstage with me that was there to help me with my hair or getting dressed or whatever. And they released 150 girls backstage. We're in Buena Park at one of the big Buena Park something there, big auditorium stage and everything. And there's dressing rooms everywhere, right? So we go in the back, and I just remember looking to my right going in, and there was a big room, a big giant room. Like it could have fit probably all 150 girls in there. I don't even know from my memory, but I only see one person in there, and it's Carol Simple with Jan Tana. Well, Carol Simple is supposed to be the winner of this show. Rumors going around, and she's a great athlete, like great routine and all that. mind you, this pageant wasn't your normal show. We had to be there for almost a week.
Jeez.
Prepping because they had a big production and there was a big fitness routine we had to learn. And it was a pageant. Like this wasn't just show up one day, go to the athlete meeting, next day you compete. It was like full blown. It might have been a 5-day thing, but it was a lot. And so, yeah, you were a pageant girl,
Yeah.
with the fitness portion. So we walk backstage and I just remember seeing this room and I see Carol Simple and I see Jan Tana. Well, Jan Tana, you know who she is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she was Carol's sponsor. So she was back there doing her tan and all this. Well, I'm like, there's no one else in here. I'm going to go in here. Like, why not? There's plenty of room. So I walked in and I just was very friendly. And I said, hey, y'all mind if I'm in here? And they're like, no. Jan's very friendly. She's like, no, come on in. And so at some point during the show, I had been working with an agent in San Antonio who helped me put together what do they used to call a modeling card,
Yeah.
with your face on one side and body stuff or whatever on the other side. Now, mind you, one thing that I had kind of clicked over was prior to this show, I already had this magazine cover out.
The Muscle Fitness.
November 94 had already come out. So there's so many interesting stories of how that came about. So on my Z card or whatever we called it back then, promo card, I had my headshot and on the back, I had my cover.
Right.
Right. And maybe something else. I can't remember. So I handed this card to Jan at some point during the show. And I just said, hey, if you ever need a blonde model, contact me, because Carol was dark hair. So I was trying not to step on Carol's toes and be rude about like, hey, what about me? We had a complete different look. So
Right.
she kept my card. So when that show was over, she contacted me maybe a week or so later and told me about her show in July that she was putting on and had asked me that many months in advance if I would compete because it was an invitational only. So like that show, like all the big names at the time that were available in fitness were supposed to be invited to that show. I didn't know it. I just said, sure, I'll do it. So when I moved to California so fast forward from the show, she calls me. I moved to California in April. So a couple months later. And I can't remember who told me. Somebody within this group of people that I was kind of meeting through the Fitness USA told me about the modeling, a sports modeling agency in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the name of it, but it was a specific agent. And they said, oh, you need to contact this agent. I said, okay, great. So I go in, I have an appointment. I go in and meet this agent, sitting talking about what I've done, who I am and what they do and all this. Literally that moment that I'm in there, this man walks in and he hands, comes in. Okay, the agent's name was Matt now that I'm just remembering. But so this man walks in and Matt says, oh, hi. And they exchange a little conversation, hands him something and he leaves. And then Matt looks at me and he goes, that man's wife is a professional dancer, choreographer. You might want to talk to her about what you're doing with your, your competitions. Cause I had said, I'm going to need a choreographer. I didn't know anyone. That ends up to be my choreographer. And she coaches out of Gold's Gym Venice. She teaches a dance class at Gold's Gym Venice. That's where I'm going to be, is Gold's Gym Venice. I mean, out of all of the people in LA, right? Or all of the locations it was just the whole timing. Because otherwise, Matt, the agent, he probably wouldn't have said, oh, you need to meet Lisa, like, this guy's wife. It was just, so she ended up to be my choreographer. She was amazing. She's like an amazing dancer. She's been on movies and sets and danced with partners. She's done all kinds of awesome productions and stuff. So she was my choreographer and she taught me how to dance in just a few months. I started she had me come into her hip hop street dance classes at Gold's. Mind you, sprinting and horses.
Right.
I mean, and self-taught gymnastics. So we started working together, and she literally would put my routines together, and then she'd put them into whatever choreography she was doing for the dance classes. And so I would just be working. So I loved it. I actually had I had a little rhythm. I actually could get it. So, but I think that comes with being, you know, athletic and just understanding your body. And then of course, it's something I really wanted to do. So I worked with her for a few years. And if you go and look at my routines, I know on my website, there's a few, I think there's 4 on there from different competitions. And you can see the progression of my dance skills. And then I started taking gymnastics in 1996. The end of 96, I was introduced to a gymnastics coach. And I started driving out to, Pasadena. So I drove from LA to Pasadena, and I would train with him 3 or 4 times a week. So then my gymnastic skills actually started getting to be a lot better. I got off the hard floor, and I was able to practice on a spring floor, and all of my skills got a lot stronger. And I was saving my body because up to that point, I was just practicing everything on that hard floor. It was just brutal. But Lisa was my choreographer, and she was awesome. So I learned a lot. But I don't know. So I guess you asked about how did I get my, you know, what happened. So getting into that competition, training for that, going into Gold's Gym, I ended up with having done the modeling thing for Jantana, had ads coming out in the magazines now. And at that time in LA, all of the top physique photographers were there. All of them. They were all there and in Golds and around Golds. So if you were a new face at Golds, they all saw you, and they would, you know, I met all of them, and they started wanting to do photo shoots, and then knowing who I was. And so I did photo shoots all the time with those guys, you know, and then when I ended up competing in June or July of that summer, and then I won that show, and then it was like, I had a Muscle Mag cover come out because of one of the photo shoots I had already done. So I had my first Muscle Mag cover come out. It's here somewhere. Oh, well, it's somewhere behind me. But it was like it just kind of was this chain of effect, right? And then got invited to the Olympia. And while all of that was going on, that I had been invited to Kiana Tom's Flex Appeal show, which aired on ESPN2 every morning.
Yeah.
Do you remember those fitness shows that, you know, on the beach and all that?
I do very well.
So that was, we didn't have, like you said, we didn't have internet back then. So I had all of these things kind of happen. And then Kiana, they asked me again the following year. I ended up with an EAS contract my first year. And it just like all the magazines, everything, because I was in the right place at the right time. I had the right look. I was fitness, not bodybuilding. And then I started getting hired to come and do my routine at different bodybuilding shows, because for a long time, there was no fitness anywhere. Well, very, very few fitness shows, because there was no NPC doing fitness. The first year was the Olympia, right? And then the next year they had amateur shows going on. Well, I was never considered amateur. I was always IFBB. So I started making guest appearances at bodybuilding shows all over the world, going and doing my routine, doing guest appearance, just like the bodybuilders did for years.
Right.
Signing autographs, and, you know, just, I had to learn business skills really fast. And interesting enough, the bodybuilders, once they knew that I wasn't like going to just be out there dating the guys, that I was there for a reason, and I wanted to work, and I wanted to be respected and all that, then I had a lot of great opportunities to ask the guys that have been doing this for a long time some of the business skills.
Yeah.
Like, what does a contract look like? How do I, get 50% of your money up front? Like I had never had to do those kind of things before, right? I didn't go to business school, and all of it was new, and you didn't have a manager. You just had yourself. And so it was awesome. I got to talk to the guys and ask for their advice. So it was cool. Those are some good days.
Well, and I don't know how many people know or don't know, but like in the 90s, especially, like Venice Beach and that area. I mean, that was it. That was like where it was at. And I've been to the Muscle Beach down there. Now this was in the earlier 2000s, but Venice itself, I can only imagine what you felt like going there kind of by yourself, because it's a trip. Like it's like a different world, seriously. And so that had to be different, little overwhelming, and it's like it's kind of like hippie-ish kind of, I guess, in a way, but it's different. It's totally different, and especially coming from where you were coming from the country, that had to be like, whoa, shock, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm a people person. I adore people. I like to get to know people. I appreciate other people's. Yeah, I look people in the eye. I talk to them. I remember names. Like I'm a friendly person. So all of that coupled with now I'm in the magazines, and the magazines were where everyone found out who's the new or what's going on in the industry. Like, so all of a sudden now, and back then Gold's Gym, it was the only, it wasn't franchise, right? It was
Right.
just, that was the Mecca. That was the place.
Yeah.
So there was a Gold's Gym down in Redondo Beach. And I had been, I guess in my first year, I kind of did some of that one, but it was definitely not the same as being up at the Mecca. And then I moved to Marina Del Rey and lived up there the rest of my 10 years that I was there. But so I was only 7 minutes from the gym. It was awesome. Or 7 minutes to the airport, traveling so much. But,
Yeah.
So many people would travel. It was so fun because there would be couples that would travel to Venice to go on vacation. And they just came out to train at Gold's Gym, go eat at the Firehouse, walk up and down Main Street, go to, what's it called? Hot Skins, like, there was just those unique Perfetto clothing where like you could go to the Max Muscle, you could go to a store where all the big name brands at the time, right, in that whole area, right? So people would plan their vacations, and then they would bring their magazines, and they would want to see, they would look for their athletes of choice in the gym, so it didn't matter what day I'd go in there. I would have someone come up, male, female, whatever, so excited. Oh, Monica, I've been following, so it was just this, it ended up to be kind of your home away from home in such a unique way. And, I got to know the trainers out there and started working with a couple of them here and there, and got to be friends with them, because then I'm competing and I'm training with Lisa, and she was a big name there, the choreographer, and everyone loved her and respected her. So they would come and watch through the doorway, watch me practice my routines. So I really had to learn. I got to have audience without having an audience, because again, I was a track person. You don't have to entertain anyone when you're running track.
No.
You just have to be fast.
It's a testament, because like, it's so easy to get yourself seen now. I mean, in reality, it is. You have so many different methods and outlets to be seen everywhere. You can put videos out. You can do this. So if you were able to do it then, that's saying something, because you have to be like outgoing. You have to have something going on. There's a lot more that would go into it.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different animal that so many people don't understand, that weren't around during that time period. And granted, I was a little bit, younger then, but I still understand and realize and know. So that's impressive, to say the least. Now, how old were you when you decided that you were done competing? When was your last competition? And when do you kind of, as a competitor itself, when does it finally set in, like, okay, I can't do this anymore, or it's time to move on, or what? How does that go? Because I know people are interested in that.
Sure. Well, I competed in fitness. 1999 was my last fitness routine or competition, the Fitness Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, looking back, I was really weary of the gymnastic training.
Mm-hmm.
And my routines were decent, for sure. But because there were so many ex-gymnasts that were coming and flooding fitness that were amazing gymnasts, or like a handful of the girls were cheerleaders, with scholarships at universities.
Right.
So they had such a different level of routine that I would not probably have been able to ever get to that level. So there was always this place of, I'm doing my best. And I can only get so good in my routine because I didn't have the, 20 years of doing all that leading up to it. But what I got done was definitely fun. I look back at my routine now going, I did all that. Wow. But yeah, as an athlete, you're like, that's pretty cool, especially just thinking of how I trained myself in the beginning days, when I was a 14, 15-year-old kid. I have to do as many back handsprings in a row as I'm old. So I did 15 back handsprings in a row. I was like dizzy. Dizzy. But anyway, so 99 was my last fitness Olympia. I just think after I won the Olympia, I was, there was a couple things that were disheartening. First of all, Ronnie Coleman and I worked together a lot. He and I did a lot of, I worked with all the guys a lot doing guest appearances. Like I traveled almost every weekend. So traveling all over the world, almost every weekend, trying to keep up with the routine, trying to learn new skills in my late 20s.
Right.
And it was just a lot. So when I won the Olympia in 98 was the last time that the Olympia was held outside of the United States. Okay. It was in France. And if you look at my routine, we competed on a man-made stage the day we competed. It was put up. There's a crappy little curtain behind us that had no Olympia sign, not one Olympia sign. It was like a green curtain that maybe was about 6 foot tall. And it just went around behind the stage. And that was it. That was the Olympia I won in 98. So when you see my pictures, one of my girlfriends was helping me with some creative stuff for a while. And she actually took one of my Olympia win pictures and she put a beautiful background behind me that has, Olympia stuff, like some logo for the Olympia. Because otherwise, I'm holding my Olympia medal, but otherwise you don't know that I'm at the Olympia.
Right. Wow.
Anyways, so after that, there was a couple different work opportunities that came up. And one of them was, I was always very outspoken in a polite way. And as I got more into the industry and got to know, like Weeder publications and all that, I remember having a photo shoot where I was doing a cover for Muscle and Fitness with Jay Cutler.
Awesome.
It's up here somewhere. But Joe Weeder showed up for that. And we had a break during the day and I got to sit and talk to Joe. And I asked him just point blank, I said, when are you going to have fitness girls under contract? And I remember him looking at me going, oh, you think we should have fitness girls under contract? I'm like, well, yeah, you've got the male bodybuilders. And, I think at the time they had some of the women bodybuilders, right? Linda and Corey, and I'm like, well, why not fitness? Like we're in the Olympia, we're all over. And here I am shooting a cover for your magazine, another one. So right after that happened, and mind you, I'd won the Olympia, moved forward that. And then after all of that happened, I ended up with a contract from Weeder. And it was so sad how much it was. It was just puny. Right. And there was a lot of verbiage that I couldn't agree to. And I didn't even have a lawyer look at it, mind you. I did all of my own contract scrutinizing.
Wow.
I couldn't sign it. So I turned it down and I ended up going with, and it was like a 15, 20 page contract. And I ended up going with Universal Nutrition. They had a 4 or 5 page contract, better money, better everything. Mm-hmm. And there was no rule that I had to compete, it was like, here's this, you do this many appearances in a year. We may do pictures. You're going to use your name, not on any products, but just within the company. and I ended up signing with them. I was with Universal for 7 years. They treated me very good. But moving forward, after I won the Olympia, I got another offer from Weider. So the second offer I got, they came back around, and I heard that he had won the Olympia the same year, his first year that I won. I heard Ronnie got an offer with six figures,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a $36,000 offer.
Jeez.
I know. And I was like, no, thanks. So I never signed with Weider, and I know that other fitness girls went ahead and signed with them.
Sure.
Yeah. But I was like that with a lot of things. There was another contract that came in 2000. There was a few things that happened, but in one of the contracts in 2004, maybe, 2004. I was now doing the Figure Olympia, and maybe a few months before the Figure Olympia, I ended up getting a company sent me a contract to look at, asking if I would join them. And same thing, I couldn't sign it. And I remember calling the guy that was my contact at the company, and he literally told me he couldn't answer any questions because he had never read the contract. But he was my contact for that contract. So I was like, okay, well, I have a bunch of questions. So tell me, because he was like, oh yeah, tell me, what questions you have? And I'm like, I have a lot, and I need to look at the contract with you. Well, I've never read it. So I ended up saying no to that contract, and that ended up to be the title sponsor of the Figure of the Olympia in 2004. I didn't know that was going to be the title sponsor. I said no to it, didn't do it. The two girls that first and second at the Olympia for Figure Olympia that year ended up first and second. I came in third, but they both signed the contract.
Sure, of course.
It was a contract that I couldn't sign because of the details of it.
They will often are so used to just because of who the name is or whatever, they're just used to people just blindly signing them, and they'll put whatever verbiage they want, and they can own you. I've learned that through many people trying to sign me for things that would say, like, we own the rights to this video you did or this video you did. And I'm like, no, you don't. And I have people analyze all of my stuff now at this point because I've done stuff.
Well, now it's a lot different. There's so much, right? But I didn't have that back then. And I'm like, just keep things simple. Like, you don't
it's
need
a
to
red flag when there's that many pages going on, and and oftentimes, and this is kind of some spiritual stuff I've been reading, a lot of times you'll have something good, and it may actually be good or seem good, but it's not great. And if it's not great, then it's not right, and it's not meant to be, right? So just then people don't process that, and they listen to their head more than they should, and their feelings, as opposed to getting into it a little more, and then you make mistakes. So,
people are afraid to say no as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I had someone tell me in my life one time, don't be afraid to say no to things. It's okay to say no to things, because as an athlete that is, paying my own way, and mind you, living in LA was not cheap. My condos were $2,200 a month, or $2,250. Like, from the time I started living out there, I think I was paying $625 when I shared the first apartment with my friend. And then by the time I left, I was in a condo. It was 1,400 square foot condo, and it was $2,250 a month. So there was so much, you had to hustle, you had to work hard. I didn't have someone supporting me. It was just me. Right. And I did have sponsors, and I did have work, but you never wanted to say no. You always wanted to be ready. You wanted to be on, you wanted to have your physique on, you wanted, and I competed and I did shows, once or 3 times a year. I wasn't one of those 7 or 8 time persons. But I also never had a contract that stipulated I had to get on stage. And there were contracts that floated around in front of me that I was told I should sign. It would look good for me at the Olympias, but I never signed them. So that's a whole nother ball game. But I never was forced into getting on stage. That was something I chose to do, and always was proud that that was the case, because most of those girls ended up signing things that said they had to get on stage 3 or 4 times or whatever their manager told them they had to do. And I never wanted to be that person. Like, I wanted to go because I felt that's what I was supposed to do, and I wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm. So when you won in 98, what was the whole like preparation, like the diet, the training, like I'm sure you just had to live it, breathe it. Like, how intense was it? How long was the intensity like that? And, how did it affect you mentally, physically, drain you, things like that? What went into that?
You'll have to pull up my video. There was back then a VHS tape, and then it turned into a DVD, but now it's on YouTube, called The Secret of Beauty. And it was a day in the life of Monica Brant. And Mitsuru Okabe followed me around for a few days and captured everything. He was doing these reality movies or documentaries with all the men. I don't know. I might have been the only female he did one on.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's actually on, but yeah, that was, then the magazines would do the day in a life stories. The magazines would do that as well. But, well, everything kind of like, there was no real off season, right?
Right.
Off season, because number one, I wasn't a lifelong gymnast where if I took a lot of time off once I started doing the routines, if I took a lot of time off that, it was so hard to get that back.
Sure.
So I just had to stay in that all the time.
Right.
I had to stay training and doing that so that my timing, that my body stayed limber enough, that I stayed strong enough, that I stayed mentally strong enough. Because when you start, adding in all these different flips and layouts and Shushanovas and all these things, like you have to stay in that space. Maybe not to the extent where and then I was doing a lot of routines in guest appearances. So I had to stay in that all the time. But yeah, so for the 98 Olympia, after having competed, for a few years there at that level, was like, I remember somewhere in April, May of that year, just making a decision. I am not doing anything that doesn't go towards the Olympia. I am not going to allow someone to ask me to do something that's going to affect my time that I go to bed, when I wake up, what I need to eat. And I'm going to be very precise and detailed and protective.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to say, they use the word selfish. Oh, when you're bodybuilding, it's very selfish. Like, it's when you're doing it as a career, it means you will protect what you have to do in order to make your money and make your income. And it's not a selfish thing at that point. I think because that's your job, right? Like, that's your job. But people like to say, oh, it's so selfish. Well, those are the people, I think, that didn't do it as a career. They were just having fun in their normal life doing, or they say fun, but then they don't always have fun with it. But those are the people that didn't really understand how this was a full-time career, being this model, doing guest appearances, doing hours on end, signing autographs, and like all of it was part of your job, right? And having this spokesperson, things that the companies expected you to look a certain way. And that was the job. Like, that was the job description that I got paid for. And there was no one to take my place if I got sick or injured or too tired. Like, no, I had to show up, smile on my face, looking the way I need to look, and presenting myself the way, Robert Kennedy with Muscle Mag, he would hire us girls to come and do guest appearances at the Muscle Mag stores all around the country and in Canada. He would take us to different countries sometimes to do photo shoots. Like, he was doing those things and he would pay us, as well as we would then get the marketing for whatever. And then, he would end up doing stuff for us in the magazines where we could actually make some extra money selling our autographs. So, it was a career, and it was it was my livelihood. So it definitely, I never felt like it was a selfish thing. I felt like this is a thing that if I don't do this, I can't be who I need to be for stage, and I can't get to where I need to get if I don't go to bed on time, if I don't get up on time. And there was a whole, all the different training that had to get done, all the food, the prep. So I definitely started, I remember my mindset that year was right around, and I also, the other thing is was dating a guy that I needed to not date. And I remember breaking off the relationship and like, no guys, I'm done. This is me and what I need to do. Yeah. And this is my career, and I need to be specific. And that was that year. It was, the thing is, I had so much support too, though. Like, just the people at the gym, because it wasn't like I was moody or grumpy, I still go in and visit with people and have fun in that space where I could. And, it's like, so people were so supportive of what I was doing and wanted to help. And, and then you still had the magazine support. It was very special timing back then. But yeah, it was definitely majority of that year for that particular.
And when I say you, I don't mean you, but you lose me with the jealous or the selfish thing. Like you just that mentality, you just lose me. Like I shut off. Like I don't get that. That's like such a weak-minded mentality and concept, and it's just wrong. Like you make sacrifices to get what you want in life, or you stay mediocre and you don't get anywhere. Which fine, do whatever whatever you want, but don't tell somebody they're selfish for being successful or doing what they got to do to be successful. That's not selfish. You're making sacrifices that are hard on yourself, and you're sacrificing time. You're sacrificing, some sort of happiness, even with how you're eating, and you're sacrificing a lot. I mean, I live it. My wife sacrifices a ton having to deal with the way I eat every day, like with me. And that's part of life. To have what you want, you have to sacrifice, and you have to do,
or at least to try, right? At least because it's a subjective thing. It's not like, okay, I like with track, when I compete in track, like I can still make a PR and still feel like I won, even if I didn't win, right? Because I did a PR. Yeah. But, with any of these subjective events, you just have to go out there and know that you didn't leave any stone unturned.
Right. I know.
And when that clock rolled around at 8:30, I better be like pretty close to going to bed at, making sure I'm in bed, because I was getting up at 4:30 and having to, get my food in, and then going to do some training in one location, and then going out to gymnastics. So it was definitely. Then I was running at the track with a conditioning coach out there as well. So, and then I was in the gym training. So you have to keep.
Yeah.
Everywhere I was getting massaged, hour and a half massages twice a week during all of that, because you had to keep your body able to function.
Yeah, I totally believe it. So when you're doing stuff like that, because like when I was modeling and doing stuff, I had to do jobs like I bartended and I waited tables and stuff. That's like kind of the jobs you have when you're doing stuff like that. What were you doing? Was it more like endorsement things you were getting for money, or did you have another job that you did? Because there can't be a ton of time to work when you're having to get up early and work out and do all that. Like, what was your?
No, once I moved to LA, because that was part of my thought was when I lived in Texas. I live here in Texas, and then I thought, well, maybe I moved to LA and I can. I can get a waitress job out there. I can, the Bud guys, because I was a Budweiser girl for 4 years here in San Antonio. Yeah. They're like, oh, we can connect you to Budweiser out there if you want to, pick up some of that. So, in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm sure I can figure something out if I need to. Now, as soon as I got to LA, and my dad helped me for the first 4 months.
Yeah.
He helped me. He gave me $1,200 or $1,500 in my account for 4 months, and I had money saved. My car was paid off, but just my apartment alone was $650. So, right. Insurance. All right, and I didn't. So he helped me. So let's see, I move in April. So that means I probably, whatever. So maybe May, June, July, August. So 4 months. So in July, so I went to Jamaica. I didn't get paid to go out there, but that brought photos that Jan put me on her ads for. So I was getting exposure with that. So in those 4 months, I prepped for the competition. When I won in the Jantana, when I did win that show in July of that summer, I won a BMW motorcycle.
Oh, sheesh. Nice.
So I didn't want it.
Sell it.
We sold it. My dad sold it. My dad had it hauled to San Antonio because he's a Harley guy.
Right.
He's a motorcycle guy. So he had it, shipped to San Antonio, and he sold it, whatever. I mean, I probably ended up with $5,000 or $6,000 from that.
Nice.
And so that went into my account. And then right after that, I ended up getting on the Kiana Tom show. So that was pretty good money for 3 weeks. I don't remember how many thousands of dollars that was to be a guest on her show. We got paid, daily for 3 weeks. So that was good money. So, I actually, had some money coming in. Right. And then we got to, the Fitness Olympia. I placed 6th, I think. So yeah, there's a little something there. And then right after that, I ended up with an EAS contract, my first contract.
That's right. Yeah. That's good.
So, I mean, I had endorsement deals every year after that, the entire time, all the way up to, even just a couple of years ago, I've always had endorsement deals.
I was just going to ask you, when did you stop getting them, or are you still getting them now?
Yeah, no, it's been about 2 years now and I haven't had one, but yeah. So those are different because I think a lot of people get nowadays are like, okay, you get paid on what, if you use your people affiliate thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, we're going to give you product. Well, back in the day, we got paid. I mean, all the way up to, a couple of years ago for me, like we got a paycheck every month and you got product and, you had kind of a little contract, right? So
these affiliate codes, because a lot of times people don't use them. They don't click your link. They'll still go, and that's why when I do stuff, I always say, you know what? I don't care about the commission. I'll take this and you can take your commission because I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
what else happens? That is exactly right. But what's happened now is all of these companies you get to the website and there's bundles to buy. And the bundles are way better than buying with a 10% or 15% discount code.
It. And you're still seeing the traffic there. So that's why I don't like that affiliate code stuff.
Right? No, I don't like those either. And I'm not a fan of that. And, and it's just, and then it's like, here's another thing that is kind of interesting that's happened with social media. And I've just started noticing it the last couple of years. But, when we were back in the day, you never said you were an Olympian unless you won the Olympia.
Right. Yeah.
And now, like, it can be so confusing. You go on somebody's social media and it says 10 times Olympian. And I'm like, what?
No, not so much.
Did they win the Olympia 10 times?
Yes. And everybody's a pro now and everybody's this and everybody's that. And I'm just, sometimes I look at them and I'm not like that at all. So I don't, but I'm like, that's not a pro. There ain't no way, like I don't know. I don't like it either. It
makes sense, but it's watered it down so much. Cause now, it's like, well, I guess, do I need to go put on that on my social media? How many times I did 20 years of the Olympia, 20 years of the Arnold. And, I don't know, but I'm not going to do that, but I'm like, yeah. So it's kind of interesting how social media has changed so much of the industry. I went a couple of years back. I went to Vegas during the Olympia and I was working with a photographer and we were hosting a big photo shoot and we were like, oh, let's go into the Olympia and it's, go through the expo. I hadn't been to the Olympia in a few years. I was like, let's go check it out. So we go in and, I had some passes, a friend gave me some passes, whatever. So walking around and, it was really fun. Like I had a lot of fans come up and they're like, Monica Brant. Yeah, so that was really fun. But towards the end, we wanted to meet one of the girls that had a very long line. And we wanted to meet her and tell her what we were doing, me and the photographer, right? So she and I are like, let's go. And so her line ended. It was the very end of the expo, and they were done. And we walked into her little booth area. Mind you, she had her light set up. So every time she took a picture with a fan, she had her lighting and all of that. And I was laughing. I go, all the years I did the expos, I never one time had a good light. But, mind, that wasn't the big deal, but we were laughing at it. We went in and I said, hi, Monica. She goes, oh my gosh, I know who you are. I used to stand in your line. You were a big inspiration to me. And she was someone that, and I don't remember this moment, I don't remember her name, but to this day, but she had like 1 million or 2 million followers on Instagram or something like that, so a lot of fans. And she had one cover sitting up behind her that she was so excited about. It was Canadian, what is this? Doesn't matter, I guess. I can't remember, but it wasn't like one of the biggest. Status Fitness. She had a Status Fitness cover, just her one cover. That was the only cover she had, and she was so freaking excited about that cover. So we were congratulating her and telling her what, our business we were doing at the time, and she was just so cute. She was so excited about that one cover, and I'm like, it's so sad that the people can't have those covers anymore, right? Like, and here she is with 2 million followers, and she had one cover. And I always think, man, I wonder what would have happened if I had social media at the time that I was, and all of that. But it just showing you how different the days are now.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'm excited for the Olympia this year, and I will tell people now, just as a little preview, that like Monica and I are going to be doing quite a few different things that we're going to be working on. So you got to follow and listen. So there's going to be announcements for that, but we will be at the Olympia this year.
That's right.
And doing some very cool things. And we'll actually be doing a ton of things throughout the year and for as long as hopefully we can. And so you're going to want to see, because we got a lot of cool things we're going to be talking about, and extremely very, very interesting and intriguing people and subject matters and things like that. So I'll leave it at that, because we have to talk about that later, but it's going to be fun. I love the expos and everything. So you'll be able to meet us there and, see some of the things that we're doing and talking about. And it'll be very, very cool.
That's right. Speaking of the Olympia, are you going to take any of your fancy shoes behind you to the Olympia, or are those all shoes that you don't touch?
There's a pretty good chance there'll be one or two of those pairs taken there and worn. I wore, I can't remember what I wore last year. I'd have to go back and look at pictures, but me and my wife will normally wear a pair that matches or something like that, because I got her collecting them too.
Oh.
Since we're talking about Venice Beach, I have a pair back here. It's the Kobe Venice Beach pair. Maybe we'll bring those. We were wanting to wear those in Florida and we didn't, so we might bring those and wear those.
Are you missing a pair behind you?
I just sold a few pairs, so yeah, I got to put some new ones back in there and replace them. You know how this goes when you collect: you buy them, you sell them, you buy them, you sell them, you buy them, you sell them. It's a nonstop. So they're coming in and out and in and out and in and out nonstop. It never ends. So, well, I really appreciate all of your time, and we have a lot of things to work on and things moving forward. So the next thing you see from Monica and I will be an announcement on something pretty exciting we're working on. But why don't you tell everybody right now where they can follow you, like where's your best places, your websites, your social media, and then I will also link them in the bio so that everybody can click on them and see them.
Cool. Yeah, I just redid my website, so themonicabrantshow.com, which I've been told through some good sources that people need to have websites up and going, because maybe some changes are coming to social media here in the next year or so, or sooner. I don't know. But so I've spent a lot of time with my new website. Pretty excited. Got a great group I'm working with called Fit Hive. And they have some really cool stuff that is available through their software. So this is just the start for me with the website as it is now. You can actually get autograph pictures there, because I still have people send me mail asking for, or emails asking for autographs. So I still have autographs there, but I am working on a new book and a program called Standing Firm. So I'm excited about those things, and you can follow me on the website. You can get onto my email list so you get updates on things. So I'm working on that presently, and I'm super excited of just kind of my direction where I'm going right now for people. Pretty passionate about it, and so working on those things. And then social media, just Monica Brant on Facebook, Brant, and there is a Monica Jean Brant, my personal page, but I'm hoping somehow to merge those. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but I'm like, I wish it was all just on one page, but
right.
I have to figure that out at some point. And then I'm on Twitter, X, just Monica Brant. And Instagram is official Monica Brant, because in 2020, my Monica Brant Instagram got hijacked.
Huh.
So, and I could never get it back. So I'm just, plugging along a little bit at a time on Instagram, but it's, yeah. So that's all I got. I was thinking there's nothing else.
I'll make sure they're all linked down in the descriptions on all of our videos. And like I said, everybody, just stay tuned, because we got some exciting things to announce that are coming soon, and those will be coming out within the next week or two. I'll have some announcements. So Monica, thanks. Very interesting and fun conversation, and we'll have plenty more on the way.
That's right. Thanks, Dylan. You have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Then that's Dylan Gemelli and Monica Brant signing off.